just before I go and start prattling on about a hill that doesn't even exist, I thought I'd give you a little sneaky peek of where we're going to be coming back to in a few minutes' time. So while I'm boring you over at Puddle Hill, just bear in mind that we're going to be popping over here and having a little wander around. That's Houghton Regis pit. I haven't been here for 30 years. Anyway, more of that in a second. If you've ever driven south on the old A5, the old Watling Street between Hotcliffe and Dunstable, you might have wondered what that great big chalk cliff is all about. Well, it's what used to be Puddle Hill. Over the years it's been blasted through and quarried away, and it's gone the same way as Hunger Hill did over at Houghton. I'm not going to stand here and explain too much because of the traffic, but we're going to take a walk round the back, down the footpath towards the quarry, and I'll tell you a bit more about it. The owner of the White Lion here, very nice bloke, he said yes, that's fine, I can park here for a couple of hours. So let's go and have a look behind that cutting and see what lingers. We've got a lovely little corner of, I suppose this would be classified as Sewell. Lovely little corner of Sewell here. And we're on the Chiltern Way. So if we follow this, it should take us up to the back of the quarry, where I'm reliably informed that we can get in. Hell of a lot of new development going on over there. It's a funny place, this. It pleases me and it saddens me and then it pleases me again. It's the shape of things to come, really, but all of that old farmland there, Neolithic farmland as well, with now long gone settlements on it. That's all being built on. But we are continuing along here. Back in the Neolithic, if you'd have followed an ancient trackway from Maidenbower, which is an old causewayed enclosure over by Houghton pits. This was in Neolithic times, and there's even Mesolithic artefacts have been found there. If you'd have followed that ancient track, it would have brought you here. There were settlements here, obviously long since obliterated. So it's been settled and it's been farmed for as long as anywhere else around here. And when the Romans came, Claudius came along and he enslaved the locals into building Watling Street for him, which passed straight over the top of Puddle Hill. I mean, what you can see there is only the side of Puddle Hill. The actual hill itself was huge, all quarried away. Claudius came along and built his Watling Street, which was fine, all well and good, until the days of coaches came along. Puddle Hill, it was just so steep that it took 8 horses to pull a coach over the top of it. And this was causing all sorts of problems. So various schemes ensued over the years. At one point, they started trying to lower the top of the hill, and they started ferrying flint down from Studham and Kensworth to try and lessen the incline on each side, whilst at the same time shaving the top off of it. That didn't work too well, so a coach road was built which went around the back of the hill via what is now Sewell Lane. A coach road was built round the back, but that was eventually sold into private hands and was done away with. Eventually, in order to compete with the railways, they were forced to blast that cutting straight through the hill that we saw, and is now the modern A5. So poor old Puddle Hill there, it just proved to be too awkward, too in the way, and worth too much in chalk. Up the top there somewhere, back in the 1950s, they excavated, well, accidentally uncovered, a Bronze Age grave. The body came tumbling 40 feet down into the pit below. But the local archaeological group, the Manshead Society, they came along and investigated. And what they actually found was very clearly a murder victim. It was a shallow grave, and he'd had the left side of his skull caved in, just above his ear. And also, they found an iron dagger in his ribs. His arms and legs had been broken to squeeze him into the tiny little shallow grave that he'd been put in. So, I'm guessing that he was some unfortunate traveller following this ancient trackway that went between here and Maidenbower. And for whatever reason, they smashed him into pieces and put him in a hole. Anyway, after all of that happened, in 1926, they started a quarry. I remember commenting in one of the Tottenham quarry videos that it felt like I was about to bump into a Dalek or a Cyberman or Tom Baker. Well, actually, as it goes, can you get down there, Twinkle? Good girl. As it goes, this Houghton Regis pit was actually used for filming Doctor Who at one point. I think it was actually one of the films, one of the Doctor Who movies. Obviously, the old Doctor Who, not the new Doctor Who. I think what we're looking at here is just end of the wet season rainwater collecting in quarried pits. What we're going to go and have a look at over there is something called a marl lake. One of the rarest types of standing water in the UK. I'm sorely mistaken. This is flowing, as you can clearly see. This is actually flowing through the pit. So it's not rainwater. And look, can you see the bubbles rising up in this bit here? We've only gone and found another spring. Look. See if I can get the angle right for you to see the... Don't know if you can see the little rising rings, the little plips. Yeah. So we've actually got a water table aquifer spring going on over this side of the pit as well as the Marl Lake over there. Okay, right, let's keep going. 50 years it took them to dig this out. 50 odd years, from 1926, and I think it was decommissioned in 1971. These days it's owned by the Wildlife Trust, who are managing the place, from what I can see, very nicely. There's a lot of interesting birds, a lot of orchids, a lot of butterflies. Of course, you've got the unique water feature in the lake over there. All the way through the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't like this. It was a bit of a local tip, and it was where certain unscrupulous teenagers used to pop down with an old 6-volt battery and a can of petrol, looking for a Honda Cub. Honda Cubs used to be dumped all over the place down here. Little C50s, C70s, C90s. You could come down here with a battery and a can of petrol, and you'd find one that worked. And as a 12 or 13 year old, 30 odd years ago, that was a good summer's day out. But the place was strewn with litter and burnt out vehicles. It's been tidied up nicely, and it looks like they've cleared a lot of the scrub as well. I remember it being a lot more overgrown than this. More springs. Bubble, bubble. I said that this place made me sort of, happy and then sad and then happy again, because all that history was destroyed, and then it fell into disrepair, and there's a lot of development going on. Look, can you see those houses creeping in along the top? But at the same time, look at this as a nature reserve. It's absolutely amazing. It's a fledgling nature reserve. It does need development, but it's well on the way, and it's got all of the basics. You've got these springs down here, look. All these little streams. Reed beds. Native scrub. Willow everywhere, look. It's a really unique site, and I'm not surprised it's an SSS, a site of special scientific interest. I can see good things for the future of this as a nature reserve. Right, we need to get round this boggy bit. I want to get over to the Marl Lake causeway. Lovely. Just what we need. What you're looking at here is a marl lake, one of the very rarest types of lake in the whole of the UK, and it's completely aquifer fed. I mean, I suppose it must get minimal rain coming down the sides there, but it's an aquifer fed lake. There's no rivers coming into it or flowing out of it. It purely bubbles up through fissures in the chalk from way down deep below. Now, worryingly, a couple of years ago it almost disappeared. I reckon there's a bit of a sinkhole going on and the water was draining off somewhere. It was a bit of a horrific sight because you could see all of the... Who's that? Oh, it's a moorhen. You could see all of the abandoned vehicles at the bottom of it. But you get giant dragonflies here. One of the many reasons that it is a site of special scientific interest. Hardly any of these in the country, and it's good that the Wildlife Trust have got their mitts on this one and do what they can to look after it. There's a footpath that runs along the top of there, and there's quite a well-known old ghost story about the sighting of a headless Saxon chieftain in full battle armour. It's a very unsubstantiated story. It's very well known, but search as you might, you can't find any names or dates or anything more than what I've just told you. So it's a bit of a spurious one, as well known as it is, but I'm sorry, to be honest, the second the word headless comes into it, yeah, you know. The town just next to us that this pit is named after, Houghton Regis, just known locally as Houghton. The Regis was actually added later on. Back in history it was known as Houghton or Houghton. Houghton was how it was originally pronounced. Now that ho bit at the beginning, that's from the same derivation as the ho suffix at the end of Ivinghoe, Tottenhoe, Sharpenhoe, which all mean a little hilltop promontory sticking out into lower land, and for obvious reasons generally inhabited in prehistory and throughout the Dark Ages. This is one of your smaller hoes, or it was until it was all quarried away, but that's where the name Houghton comes from. It was Houghton, meaning farm on a little hilltop promontory. Now if you go back to the Domesday Book, it is in the Domesday Book in 1086, Dunstable isn't. Dunstable is the main town around here, but if you go back to the Domesday Book, Dunstable as a town doesn't even get a mention. What you're given is the four quarters of the crossroads where the old Icknield Way passes the Roman Watling Street. The four quarters are Houghton, Caddington, Toddington, no not Toddington, Kensworth, Houghton, oh and Sewell. So all of these places which are now little villages, other than Houghton, which is rapidly growing to a disturbing level, as you can see over there, it was actually all of these little villages that defined the area rather than Dunstable itself. And Houghton was originally known at one time as Selig Houghton, Selig being an old English word meaning fortunate. It's believed that they were fortunate in the sense that they didn't get flooded because it was on this little promontory. It was the fortunate farm on a little hilltop promontory. Now, Selig Houghton, over the years, that's been mistaken in local folklore and mispronounced as Silly Houghton. Now, there's not a word of truth in this. It's just one of those silly old local stories. But legend has it that the people of Silly Houghton very nearly starved because they slept all day. They had no time to tend their sheep or grow their wheat. They slept all day, and the reason for that was they spent all night trying to fish the moon's reflection out of the village pond with their rakes and pitchforks. Now, that's obviously no insult to the people of Houghton Regis, because I've heard that story repeated over and over again for different parts of the country. It's a very common story, and I think it's just got something to do with a little bit of silly local small town rivalry, you know. Silly Houghton, Selig Houghton. Right, we're going to have a walk over there where I can see there's quite a lot of motorcycle and mountain bike activity been going on. There's somebody who watches my videos called Lawrence who does ride down here with permission on his old Honda. I'm going to go and have a look and see what sort of terrain he's up against. Yeah, okay, that way. I'm really not surprised by you know, the recent findings around here involving sinkholes. If you look at all the groundwater that comes out here, and you consider the millions and millions of tons of chalk that have been lifted off the land, that's going to create a bit of movement, isn't it? There's literally water pouring out the ground everywhere you turn here. I wonder what that means for the people who've just bought houses. We'll let her back off the lead now that we're away from all that deep water, because we know what you do around water, don't we, Twinkle? And that water there is very deep and the sides are very slippery. Go on then. I think this is where I see most of the where I saw most of the motocross and mountain bike activity going on when I popped over for a quick recce a few days ago. I can see a few people about, but I've not heard any engines, so I'm not sure Mr. Lawrence is here today. If you're watching this, Lawrence, thank you for reminding me. It's been 30 years. Nice to come back and see how it's changed. And it's definitely changing for the better. Windy, rainy and chalky. There's no place like home. Well, there we go then. Very nearly at the end of my little walk now. We've done a full circuit of the pit. We came in over there, which is where we're going to exit from. We went down the bottom, through the reedy area, over to the Marl Lake over there, followed the Marl Lake along, and then back up onto this cliff face here. It's been a really good one. I've enjoyed it. Like I said, it's a long time since I've been here, and there are slightly depressing aspects about the place. But as history's, you know, come and gone and things have changed, I'd say actually Houghton Pit has found itself finishing on a high note, because as a fledgling nature reserve, that is one valuable resource. That is a good place for the Wildlife Trust to be building on. I nearly said what nature's given us. Of course, nature didn't give us that, did it? We created it. But it's been turned into something extremely positive. So I'm really pleased I came along. And Twinkle's enjoyed it as ever. So then, enjoy my last little bit of chalky track. We'll go back to the car. I'll go and edit this. Quite a few clips. Editing's really boring. Anyway, that was lovely. Although I'm starting to ache a little. See you later, Puddle Hill. Ah, it's another one, look. I'm getting a bit fed up of seeing this now, it's everywhere. So what I like to do when I find one of these, I like to just, oh dear, I like to just plop it out the bag and I'll take it home with me like a good citizen.